Welcome to Center Ground, your home for unfiltered discussion, where we tackle today's most talked about topics, break down current events, and give our take on the internet's latest foolishness. Tune in and let's find some common ground. Let's get this party started. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Center Ground podcast. I am your host, Bootsy. I found this, I'm trying to start a segment of like blind commentary where I don't watch the video beforehand and then I provide commentary to see if my thoughts align with what's going to be said in the video and to kind of analyze the thought process of the folks within the video. So today I saw a video from the Coffee Pot. It was titled "Black Men Are Horrible Fathers and Create Single Mothers," which I found very interesting wording. So let's check it out to see what's being said.
Did y'all see that video clip of that from tonight's conversation screaming in the camera that black fathers are the most involved in this country? That's a damn lie.
All right, so just even to get this started off, we're not even 10 seconds in, and I already can tell the type of person that this lady is, the attitude that she has towards her own people, and she probably harbors a bit of self-hatred, right? So whenever you have conversations with people like this, who instantly attack an entire group of people, especially when that entire group of people is their own people, you're already in for a rough day, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if this lady walks around with that bonnet all day. It would not surprise me if she is a single mother. It wouldn't surprise me if not only is she a single mother, but she's a single mother that has multiple children by multiple men. And it also would not surprise me if the hair on her head is not her own, right? These tend to be the talking points for people who have certain behaviors, who have certain experiences, particularly people who don't realize that their experiences are theirs because of their behavior. But you realize a lot of people who move like this, they love to shift blame. She's saying that black fathers are not good fathers, which is a crazy thing to say, a self-hatred type of thing to say, a misandrous thing to say. But they get away with saying this on the regular, especially online. They don't get blocked, they don't get banned, but you know, this is what they say. Now, before this conversation gets started, I'm going to say this. What they have found is black fathers who are actually the kid's father, who are actually involved in the children's life, tend to do a phenomenal job at being involved in those children's lives. I've had conversations with some corporate executives, rich white men, and we've had personal conversations about family, especially when I was first starting my family out. And one of the things that was a common trend is they wish they didn't work so hard. They wish they had more time raising their children because they, you know, if they were involved in more in the children's life, they feel like they could have structured the child better. They could have helped with the child's personality, guide them through life and things like that. But instead, they kind of had to somewhat outsource their responsibility to their wife because they had a conflicting responsibility of providing and taking care of the family, which is a form of protection, by the way.
Nowadays, statistically, black men are the most involved fathers in the United States, bro.
That's a fact.
Like more of us are going to school. We making the most money we've ever made. More of us are going to therapy, bro. So to say like what can we do? Like, bro, continue doing y'all thing. Continue making space for y'all. We making space for ourselves, fam. Like we unpacking this shit.
The complaint always seems like no one's helping you. No one's doing it. Women don't want to help you. Women don't. We just want to use y'all. We just want to abuse y'all. So us
I
asking.
didn't say that.
Drink the coffee, it'll make it.
Yeah, I never liked that lady's arguments. It always comes off as childish. And I hate when you look at tonight's conversation, I think that's what the show is called. They always have someone, and it's always a woman who seems to be there for something of comedic relief, even though they're typically not funny. And all they do is say the opposite of what's being said in the conversation, or they always try to paint the men, in no matter what situation it's in a negative light.
This is not to bash black men. This is just to tell the truth. That's a lie. That's a straight up and down lie. There
I'm not gonna bash you, black men, but I'm gonna tell the truth about you that you're bad and you're not doing things correctly because I don't believe so. Figures.
are so many black, brown, white women, etc., in this country who are doing everything on their own after being with a black man. Or, I know it happens in every community, every race it is, but statistically speaking, white fathers, brown fathers, etc., on down the line are way more involved. Look at the youth in this country that is misguided. It's not the white, it's not the brown, it's the black, because the fathers are
Brown and black are the same thing. But what she's saying is, statistically speaking, black fathers are not around to help the children. And this is the problem when you have arguments with ignorant people. The statistics state that when black fathers are around, they are the most involved. She's speaking on black fathers who aren't around. So she's speaking on I think it's over 70%, 75% of single mother epidemic within the black community, her community, my community, right? The problem is when you don't look at statistics holistically, you tend to have ignorant commentary about it. So she's going to say within our community, the black fathers aren't around, which is why so many single mothers are single mothers. What she, like many people do, is they never look into why. Now, I said this in one of my previous videos. I'm a troubleshooter by trade. My job is literally to fix problems. I figure out what the problem is, what caused the problems, to see if I can make sure that these problems don't manifest themselves again, and then you proceed. So you create new procedures and policies to make sure that the problem, how it happened, doesn't happen the exact same way. Can it happen again? Yes, but you make sure that it doesn't happen the same way, if at all possible, for you to prevent it. So how I tend to think is, it's not just that my community is full of single mothers. You have to start thinking how we got there, because we weren't always a community of single mothers. That problem has only existed for maybe the 80s, 90s. So it's relatively new. So something shifted within us, within the way we think, within our environment, that created this problem. Also, you also have to start looking at who is the root of the single mother epidemic. At every single mother problem, there is a woman involved. You could also argue that at every single parent, single mother household, there was also a man involved. So that's where we're both equal. But then when you start doing deeper dives, you have to start looking into the relationship. Okay, who started the relationship? Who allowed unprotected coitus, I'll say, so it doesn't get banned off YouTube? Who, decided to keep the baby? Because oftentimes you find that in these short relationships, which is what breeds a lot of these single mother homes, it was usually for a fun time, not a long time. One got attached, they had unprotected coitus relations, and then a baby was produced by it. Oftentimes, the father didn't want that child. Oftentimes, the mother decided that she wanted the child. Now you have a split, right, in paths. You have one who didn't want, one who wanted. The father in America can't dictate whether or not the woman has the child. Only the mother can dictate whether the child is born. So that's where you have a split, where the woman has the advantage and the father has the disadvantage. When you start adding the fact that women are now incentivized by the child support, by the family court system, to have these children so that they can extract resources, funds from the man, or even stay connected to that man through the court system, you see why so many women opt to have children, often that they don't want, so that they can receive a paycheck for that child. Men don't have that option. Men can't say, I don't want the child, I'm backing out, I don't want any responsibility for this child, but a woman can. So when you create unstable dynamics like that, it's a breeding ground for problems.
leaving. They're not in the picture for whatever reason. That is why I wish podcast.
For whatever reason. See, and that's what people do when they know that the argument will always beat them. They start to pretend like they don't know what's going on. And I said that in my last video. They pretend like they don't understand why single motherhood is created. And what I find most hilarious is oftentimes when you look at a lot of single mothers, and it's definitely not all, because some guys really do suck. They're terrible human beings. But it always goes back to, you should vet people before you sleep with them, especially if you're going to do so unprotected. Right? But people love to ignore the fact that women are fully autonomous. That means they can sleep with 50 people, not really know who the father is, try to put it on whichever man they like best or which is best suited to financially help them, and then try to take them to court, which is might be why so many of them reject things like DNA testing. Because if you actually test all women and all families and to make sure that the father's who they say they are, I think a lot of families will fall apart. A lot. But that requires a level of accountability, which we know tends to be avoided.
Cast was never a thing. You can't scream in the camera because you feeling some type of way. It's not an attack on the black. There's a smaller percentage of black fathers that are actually present, and we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. But the larger number is the ones that are absent. And you
I think I know what she's getting at here. We'll talk about that more. Let's keep watching.
can't argue with statistics. You can get up here and talk to your friend and whatever. Oh man, you there for your kids. That's one thing. But that's just a picture. That's just a little teaspoon. Majority speaking, a lot of y'all are not in y'all kids' lives. You make the mothers, whatever race they are, do it all on their own. And that's why so many of y'all are having to get on these damn podcasts.
I find it interesting that she's using terminology like y'all make them, right? And this is one of the issues I have with the, I guess, the feminist movement or the independence movement, which I think it should probably be called, because a lot of women nowadays seem to be obsessed with the concept of independence and full autonomy, right? Even now, we're in 2025, and you still hear women saying the same things that feminists were saying during the feminist movement, right? They're saying like men are keeping them from getting certain jobs when women aren't applying for those jobs. You hear them saying men are making them have babies when no one is making these women have children, right? In fact, a lot of the men don't want the children. Women still have the children, and then they say that the man made them have it, right? We are living in a time of full autonomy, freedom, and they're still using the same old talking points and the same old, I'm being forced to do the things that I'm choosing to do.
And defend yourself with all these damn emotions. Emotions, you can't argue with facts. And that's the bottom damn line. So the ones that are there, you one of the few. We love you. We support.
And I keep interrupting because this is a topic that comes up a lot in my community, but I find it amazing that, you know, she's right with the numbers from the number standpoint. There's a lot of black men who have children, and they don't take care of them. The problem is people don't really do a deep dive into the amount of black men who do this, right? And when you actually look at the statistics, you will find that most men who create single parent homes already created other single parent homes. You get what I'm saying? It's not like there's, out of 100, there's 80% of black men that's just out here creating a bunch of broken families. That's not really the amount that's doing it. It's more like 15 to 20%. It's a very small amount of men who the women typically have favor in. These men typically are not the greatest men in society, but they're the men that the women find fun, the men that the women find attractive, the men that the women love being around. Those men tend to have access to a great deal of women, and they just run the same play on these women. Then you have another subset of men, which I think is the next smaller group, and that's the men who are actually married to the women that they're with. Now, most black men, believe it or not, regardless of what media says, most, and what a lot of women get on the internet and social media say, most black men who are married to other black women. It's a very high percentage. And if you don't believe it, go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Most people date and marry their own race. Stop listening to everybody on the internet. Go look these things up, right? But that next level or group of black men, I think, is about 25 to 35% that's married to their wives and are in the house with their children, raising their children. Those men tend to produce some of the greatest children on the planet. The same as in every other racial group. When the father is in the home and the father is an active and willing participant in the child's life, they tend to create better human beings. Point blank, period.
Period. Period. Period.
They're more structured. They are less violent. They tend to have higher levels of maturity. They tend to abuse substances significantly less. They tend to be less promiscuous. They tend to create other families that are great and are together. These are statistical facts, right? And then you have the largest group of black men who are single who don't have children. When I figured out that most black men don't have children, it was shocking. And then I started looking into my own life, looking at the anecdotal data, and I saw that, yeah, most black men don't have kids. It's crazy. But those are also the black men who tend to be ignored by the majority of our black women.
We appreciate you. But these deadbeats so damn mad about the truth, and that's what it is. Y'all have made women single mothers all across the damn races and ethnicities. There's so many of them that become single mothers after with y'all. You can't argue with that shit.
So some of you may be wondering what triggered her to go on this rant about black men not raising their kids. Well, from what I've gathered so far, she was listening to a podcast and someone on there referenced a study. This was the study, right? And I saw it in the comment section. I've talked about this study many times. I think this commenter here did a good job. He says the CDC study found that black fathers who live with their children were more likely than white or Hispanic fathers to bathe, change, or dress their children every day, more likely to eat meals with their children every day, and more likely to help their children with their homework every day. And so that study that I first heard actually stated by Oprah Winfrey. She had a video, and I've showed it a few times here on this channel. I'm not going to do it right now. You can go search it. But it had to do with fathers who were in the home, black men who live with their children, who are most likely in a long-term relationship, cohabitating, and or most likely married, were more involved than other races.
I find it funny that these studies tend to piss off people who didn't take the right steps. Right? A lot of people live loose and it doesn't work out for them, and they hate hearing stats like this because it reminds them of their failures. It reminds them that they didn't do things properly. It reminds them that, there are other people. If what it really is just jealousy.
Now, I'm also assuming that this chick here doesn't understand that most black men in the US are single and childless, and black women tend to have kids with the same small group of men.
Exactly what I said. But you need to use data and statistics to find that point and not use emotion, which I find hilarious because she had the argument that black men are being emotional in what they're saying. No, we're being data driven. And when you're data driven and you have a full understanding of why things happen, then you can then further figure out how to prevent it, which is why we tend to tell women to choose better. And they reject that very sound advice for some odd reasons, but then expect a different outcome from what they're currently getting, what their mothers got, what their grandmothers got, and then they get mad at us all over again. That's literally insanity. Doing the same thing and trying to see if you can get a different result. Like, if I keep banging my head into the wall, I shouldn't be surprised that there's a hole there.
And the black women who typically don't have help and fathers in the household are part of a bigger problem: sexual liberation, feminism, don't need a man culture, so on and so forth. I don't think she really knows what she's talking about.
And while so many play good at first, like they gonna be there, they always eventually wind up a single mom. Well, I won't say always, but 95% of the time they do.
That 95% thing is not a statistic. It's not a real one. And that sounded like a very emotional response, didn't it? Right? I'm guessing this is her story.
And yes, it is fact. What do you get when you are producing a generation of young men who've never seen a father in their household? You're expecting them to go do what they never saw done, especially in a culture that devalues those young men. Women today, black and every other race, have complete power over their own personal reproduction via birth control, and they can choose who they will give access to. Oh, but what about when a man takes advantage of a woman? Stop it. Stop. Very small percentage. That's not the majority of the stories of women today who end up single mothers. Typically, you see the men who they pick, and it don't make sense.
Part two, and if you're mad about that last video, you're really gonna be.
And speaking of which, it's like, yeah, I've seen some of the men that these young girls pick, and I mean, just off rip, when I first meet them, I'm like, yeah, nah, that ain't it. And you could go and tell them, and they just won't listen. You can tell them everything about that man just from meeting him. The way that he speaks, the way that he looks at other women when they walk by, the way that he doesn't pay attention to her when she's speaking, even the way that he looks at her. You could tell everything's off. And they'll just look at you and be like, no, you're just hating. Like, I'm not trying to date you, dummy. I'm trying to help you. But they can't understand. I forget, there was like a Tyler Perry scene When he was like, yo, so some women have been beaten and battered so much that they don't understand when someone's trying to help. And yo, that line is real.
Pissed off about this one. Talk to the granddaddies and the grandmas that have to step up and fill you shoes because you won't do what you're supposed to do. You won't take care of your creation. Talk to the aunties and the uncles that have to be a father figure for your child because you party and smoke and drink every weekend, chasing hoes, all that bullshit. See, y'all put them from Instagram up there on them panels and they can't defend themselves. They're not intelligent. All they know is show their ass and take a picture. Y'all don't put no intelligent black women up there because you know we'll eat your ass up with facts.
What's funny is she's considering herself to be intelligent, but she's ignoring facts and figures. She's ignoring the fact that people have autonomy, people make poor choices, and those poor choices come back to bite them. She's saying that the men are going out partying, drinking, and chasing chicks, but she's not saying what the women are doing. And this is a common tactic when you get women who get on social media who don't have someone to give a rebuttal, who don't have someone to challenge or debate them, who can just say what they want freely. Although what she's saying is true about some men, those are still the same type of men that women love chasing. And what I find funny is the women who love chasing men who behave poorly like that are also usually behaving just as poorly as those men. It's like, where do they find these men if these men are just out smoking and drinking all day? They find them in those same clubs, same bars, same spots that they're in, that they wear their tight dresses and go outside with revealing clothes on the weekends or sometimes during the week.
Facts. Okay, that emotional bullshit. You cannot use your emotion to argue with facts. Okay, talk to the great grandmothers and great grandfathers who have to put in on.
That's another thing. She's talking about grandmothers and grandfathers who have to raise the children. What I've learned growing up is, and I'm starting to see it in real time with people at my generation aging out and having more and more kids because they're reaching the top part of that. You know, once you get a certain age, you don't want to keep having kids. You get to like 33, 34, 35. It's like you're like, all right, I'm at the end of that road. But what you realize is I'm starting to see where you have those families where the grandfathers and the grandmothers are taking care of the children. That's usually because they failed at raising their own child. And there's an old saying that goes back long before I was born that said, failure to raise your children, you will raise your grandchildren. And I'm seeing that come true all the time. When I'm watching people who didn't raise their children properly, I swear you see that they have to raise their grandchildren. And they almost become like surrogate parents where they're raising a child all over again.
Diapers, wipes, clothes, shoes, school coming up. If you're not already in school by now, ask the grandparents how many of them had to chip in because the sorry daddy wasn't there. How many grandkids have to go to their grandparents' house? There are women co-parenting with their parents and grandparents because y'all are absent. Okay, and that's something that y'all don't like to understand in this country, but you gonna understand it the day. Ask them grandparents, put they up there.
Ask their grandparents how long they actually spent time with their child. Ask the grandparents if they had any guidance in choosing who that woman decided to connect herself with. Ask the grandparents, did they really raise the child or did they think providing and putting a roof over the child's head was the max that they could do instead of the minimum? These are the real questions that you need to ask because one thing you learn, I have 3 young children. Putting a roof over their head is the bare minimum. Putting food in their stomach is the bare minimum. Making sure that no one harms them is the minimum that you have to do. You know what you have to do? You have to spend time with them when you don't feel like it. When you're tired and they're loud and they're cranky, you have to teach them how to be more mature. You have to actually give them the life lessons that the world will not give them, but tells them or forces them that actually, that doesn't even force them, but just gets mad at them for not knowing, right? Who's actually teaching their children how to regulate their emotion? And people were like, well, I am. Okay, so how are you doing that? The room tends to go very quiet, right? And that's one of the problems within our community. Our women typically do not regulate their emotions very well. Our women are usually known for being angry and loud, are they not? Okay, so when they raise children, what are those children usually in the classroom? What's the complaint of the teacher? Those children are disruptive, they're loud, they misbehave, they don't listen. It carries on. And then we always look at, it's funny because I remember back in the day on the internet, I had made a comment on a video where it was a kid, it was a boy, and he was terrible. Like he was just acting out, doing all these crazy things, hitting people. And the mother, they interviewed the mother, and the mother blamed the father, who the child never met. I found that amazing that the mother blamed the behavior of the child on the father that he never met. And this is what we continuously do. We shift the blame from the people who are actually caretakers of the child to the people who aren't really around the child, like this lady is saying. Like the behavior doesn't come from what they witness within their parent that's around them. But again, we can have a conversation with the grandparents, we can have a conversation with the mother, but you notice she's straying away from having a conversation with the father. But it's somehow their fault.
The aunties, the uncles, the cousins, the sisters, the brothers that have to step in and fill the shoes you're supposed to fill, but you can't because you're drunk, you're high, you're partying, you focused on other. I never understood that. And this is why men in other races get so pissed off when their daughters date black men in America, because they feel that their daughter's signing up to be a sex.
No, they get pissed off because our image is bad. And our image is bad because not only does white led media, European led media promote black people as horrible, decrepit human beings, or sometimes not even human. Like if you ever watch Birth of a Nation, that's where a lot of this all started, where they painted us as savages. They did the same things to the Native Americans, right? It's not only that they do it to us, our own women, like this lady here, get on the internet and do the exact same thing. And if I said that to her, I can almost guarantee her argument would be, well, the men call out women on the internet. Yeah, we call out your behavior. We don't paint you as a horrible, decrepit human being. We tell you you're doing something wrong and you should stop. Y'all paint us like we're terrible human beings. And as she said, didn't she say 95% of us do it? That means 95% of black men are horrible. So if someone who's not black is watching this content, what do you think they're going to think about black men, particularly if our women are also talking bad about us? But again, this is a so-called educated woman who can't see her own failures, which is a huge problem within our community.
Single mom.
A few comments here. This top comment says, I'm co-parenting with my parents. Makes sense. That's how it typically goes. If you don't marry before,
You don't co-parent with your parents. You outsource responsibility. There's no such thing as co-parenting with your parents. Typically, it means that you made poor decisions and your parents have to help. That's not co-parenting. That's you extending or outsourcing your responsibilities to others. And I've seen it within my community a lot. And what I found is a lot of the women who need help from their parents to raise their children not only made poor decisions in the past, but continuously make poor decisions. And they typically still, even after making those poor decisions, still suck at choosing proper men to raise their children, to help them, because they find those men boring.
Boring.
But that's a conversation that we could have at another time.
you carry, you will most likely end up co-parenting with your parents. That's what good parents do, is that they help out. Somebody else, she says, my mom's my baby daddy for real. See how she said her mom is her baby daddy instead of her mom being her husband? Somebody else who says, I was told if you raise your child, you will not have to raise your grandchildren.
Didn't I say that? Didn't I say that? It's an old saying, and it continuously is proven to be true. People who don't raise their children properly tend to have these problems. That's not saying that people who raise their children properly do not have these problems. It just means that it happens significantly less.
I think the better quote there is, if you raise your daughters to be wives and your sons to be responsible men who can father children, then yes, you will end up in that situation. Somebody else just...
That is true as well. I agree. But here's the funny thing though. We don't do that. And we don't even want to look at who's raising our children. So we have a community of bad men, as this lady said, but she doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that our mothers are raising us. So doesn't that mean that our mothers are producing a horrible product? Sit on that for a second. Doesn't that then mean that our mothers are incapable of raising us properly? It's a harsh reality to realize as you get older that our mothers aren't these great people that we once thought they were. Not in regards to raising children anyway. Did they protect us? Somewhat. A lot of mothers fail at protecting their children, if we're being honest. That's why so many people are in therapy now, right? Did they keep a roof over our head? Yes, they did that. So that's, again, a minimum. Did they feed us? Sometimes. Some don't do a very good job feeding us, right? But again, minimum stuff. These aren't the things that people need as they get older, because you learn to fend for yourself. When it comes to the emotional stabilization, our children suck at it. Our community sucks at it. When it comes to actually having leadership skills, you hear it from the women on social media as well. Suck at it, right? This is why we chase money, because money gives us a sense of control and power, even though a lot of people with money are still just losers with money. This is why athletes go broke. This is why athletes make poor decisions. They get all those millions of dollars and then they're working at Burger King just 10 years after retirement, which is crazy. If you just lived a modest lifestyle, you could have lived 100 lifestyles. You made millions of dollars during your career. But again, we'd rather do flashy things. Being flashy is a female thing, a female led thing. Women like flashy. They love things that shine naturally. And now you see even our young men like flashy things because they're majority raised around women. So I thank God that I was raised around women, so I got an understanding of how women act, carry themselves, and behave. Like, I was around women so much and girls so much that people thought I was gay when I was younger just because they never saw me around the boys. But you see, me, I was always been analytical. I've always been one of those people that learn from watching the things that happen around me. And so I learned. And I learned from the mistakes that were being made. I learned from the attitudes that I saw. I've learned from the behaviors, right? And then as I've gotten older in my youth and in my teens, I found a few mentors. I had music teachers, gym teachers, you know, counselors, preachers, church folks, the men in the church. So I was lucky to be blessed around strong men who had built families, and I watched what they did, and I watched how it was different from the things that, let's say, like my mother did, right? And I love my mom, but she made some poor choices, which is what led to the single parent household. And even when she started receiving help from, the guy that I affectionately call my stepfather, even though they weren't married, she even made mistakes with that man, giving him attitude, making him not want to come around, you know, wanting him to have the responsibility of being the father, but then reminding him at times that he wasn't the father. All of these things are destructive behavior that we don't like to talk about, but we love talking about the men. And like, I'll close it here, but I'll just say, as a society, as a community, we have to stop with this. Let's just shift the blame to one party. We've been doing it since, I believe, the 80s. So that means it's been like around 40 years of failure. That's at least 2 generations of failing. And instead of fixing it, instead of, let's say, how about we take some time to look at the other side? Because I was raised to look at it from her perspective. This is a man problem. Men need to fix it. And then I grew up. And then I started paying attention. And then I said, okay, if we've been blaming the men for this long and we have seen no solution, then perhaps as a troubleshooter, I'm like, perhaps let's look at other options. The problem is, whenever we say that, you have to look at who rejects looking at other options. And whenever a group of people start rejecting other possible solutions, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The problem usually lies with that same group of people. Either they're benefiting from it or they're causing it. And either way, as a group, you're starting to see some changes. Black men have gotten tired of having these arguments with Black women, and they just stopped. Black men are not going to fight you for you to be a good woman. Black men are not going to fight you for you to be a feminine woman. Black men are not going to fight you when they're trying to get you to lose weight, to be more healthy, to be more responsible, to be more respectful. They're just going to go somewhere else. And we're starting to see the dynamic shift a bit. Black men still majority want Black women, but they're not looking for the stereotypical Black woman. They're looking for the woman that did not have children with another man. Once you hit that criteria, once you had someone else's child, you're disqualified. Black men are now starting to say, you know what? There are other races of women who actually like me. When my women are calling me corny, cheesy, stupid, lame, sassy, there are other groups of women who actually want to build with me. Sometimes there are missteps because some Black men think so highly of other races that they become blind. But the truth of the matter is, you should go where you're appreciated, not just where you're tolerated. Because when people just tolerate you, believe it or not, their behavior, they tend to treat you like crap. And with that being said, I would argue Black women need to start looking within to try to fix the problems on their side. Black men need to look within to fix the problems on their side. If it takes us splitting apart for a little bit, that might, and I hate to say it, that might be the best thing for us. Or you can just pay closer attention, Black men and Black women, to the people that you don't traditionally like. The people that our group is telling you is terrible, is boring, is crazy, is lame, right? Because men have the same problem. They tend to chase the Instagram model, the women who come outside half naked, the women who wear the long weaves and the extensive amount of makeup, right? I would argue the same way I would admonish Black women and say, stop looking for the fake gangsters, the fake thugs, the swaggy guy, the guy who dresses a certain way, the flashy guy, the guy that's going to take you on trips, the guy that's going to do, all these things, the scammer, all that crap. The same way I would tell young women to choose better and stay away from those men, I'm going to admonish young men and say, stop finding these lame women who are morbidly obese, who don't take care of themselves, who have zero accountability, who had outside children, who can't listen when you speak, who have zero respect for anyone they don't work for, who don't pay them. Any woman who thinks that you have to pay them to be with them, just stay away from them. I don't care if they're Black, white, or anything in between, because this is not a race thing. This is a character thing. This is a flawed logic thing. And until we can figure out how to choose better, these problems, these arguments, and these dumb videos are never going to end. Until we meet again.
Thanks for listening to the Center Ground Podcast. We'll be back soon with some more great content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. We are a new channel, and growth is essentially our main objective. So send us an email at centerground.pod@gmail.com with any ideas or clips you would like for us to review. This was definitely fun, and I'd say let's do it again. But before you go, always remember, greatness lives somewhere within you. Just make sure you're taking the time to find the key to unlock that greatness. Until we meet again, I'll see you soon.